Good morning, sunshine. Welcome to the morning show based on mental health, mental strength, and overall well-being. I'm one of your hosts this morning, Brandon Lee, alongside my very good friend and partner in crime, Carey Pena.
We have some great guests and some important conversations we're going to have today. We're going to be talking about a chiropractic neurologist based in Phoenix who is helping children from all across the country. And we have a mom here standing by to share an emotional story, but also one of hope. And Dr. Christopher Keck, who is the CEO of Open Hearts Family Wellness, will be here to have a conversation about trauma-informed care.
Yeah, so really looking forward to both of those guests on today.
Important topics.
Very important topics. They're doing great work within the community, also by educating the community and other people who may be experiencing what they have gone through. First up, though, what is going down in our community right now? And I want to talk about an adolescent treatment center. They treat kids from about 11 to 18 years old. And the moment you say an adolescent treatment center, the look on people's faces is almost like a shock look, like, wait, you mean a treatment center for an 11 or 12-year-old? Well, believe it or not, on my podcast yesterday, I recorded a podcast on my Escaping Rock Bottom, and I interviewed a guy, a grown man now, who started meth use at 11 years old.
I saw your email come out, your email blast, and I had to read that twice.
Right, because it does happen. So there's a brand new adolescent treatment center that just opened in Arizona, and there's not many in the entire country that just cater to 11 to 18-year-olds. It's called Avery's House out in the East Valley. And it's not just substance use disorder that they treat. They treat depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorders, ADHD, self-esteem issues, mood swings and anger, difficulty with family and friends, suicidal, self-harm thoughts, bullying and victimizations, and again, as I said, substance use disorder. So it's not just like these are a bunch of kids 11 to 18 who are drug addicts. No, I mean, you're dealing with all behavioral health at a residential treatment center.
And how important is that? I mean, it's just incredible to think of the journey that these young people are on and how it could change their entire life.
Well, it's important
early on.
It's important at those very formative stages, right? Trauma is passed on through generations. So if you can do that intervention, right, between 11 and 18 years old, where that brain is still being formed, the chances of them getting into hardcore drugs and really having their life go off the rails, if we can do that intervention right now while they're children, we have a higher success rate when they become adults.
Now it is time for the story behind the story, and I want to introduce you to Melissa Maas. And she kindly sent us an email about her story.
Good to have you.
It's so good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You had a very tragic situation happen, but fortunately, your daughter is doing well and making strides. So your daughter was a near drowning victim. And can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yes, so September of 2019, she was 19 months old. We did have a pool without a fence, and she did find her way out there in the early morning, and she did fall in the pool. My husband found her, and from that point on, everything kind of just started at that point. She was admitted to Phoenix Children's. Those first 48 hours were extremely critical, but she did. She's a fighter, and she's our miracle baby. And so that's kind of where her journey started.
I can see the emotion on your face even just right now reflecting. I mean, I can't imagine how horrendous that must have been to go through.
Oh, it's horrible. It's every parent's nightmare, I think. But I feel that she is a fighter, and we're here today, because of her and her will to be here. So she has a big story. Someday she will tell us.
You emailed us because specifically you wanted to talk about the treatment that you have found right here, in fact, right down the street from our studios, a chiropractic neurologist who you said changed everything for you guys. How?
He is a chiropractic neurologist, like you said, and the way he is with most of his kiddos, all pediatric brain injuries, is it's amazing. He's just the compassion, the care, the attention. He's not just, coming in, taking his notes, and just kind of sending you on your way with, a medication or a treatment plan per se. He's working with the neuroplasticity, which I know you're very familiar with as well. And that's trying to create new pathways for Eviana to figure things out, such as crawling or walking, talking, things that she was doing prior to her accident. And she's just created a bond with him that's just I think helped projected her treatment even further.
And I know Brandon has a bunch of questions. I just wanted to mention we're talking here about, I should have said his name, Dr. Connor Bohr.
Yes.
And this is someone who people are flying in from all around the country because of this work that he's doing.
What are some of the modalities? What is this doctor doing that some of the other experts haven't done yet?
So he works a lot with a red light, and everybody always asks, what's the red light? It's a low-level laser that's used in smaller increments that help kind of energize the cells, and that kind of helps too. The fact that these kiddos are still young and that neuroplasticity, they can create those new pathways is what he is kind of focusing on. He's just trying to integrate and get things going for these kiddos where the damaged areas. So basically, it's like treating a damaged muscle. It's the same thing with the brain. So he's working these different areas of the brain to try to get that reintegrated.
What's some of the progress that you have seen in your own daughter from when this incident happened nearly 3 years ago to where your daughter is today?
So when she was discharged from the hospital, we were basically told her quality of life was what it was at that time. So basically non-mobile, non-verbal, not eating. She did have a G-tube for feeding. And I just knew as her mom, like, no, like that's not where, I guess I wouldn't accept it. So we went on and I did research. I just kind of went down that rabbit hole and just found doctors and specialists that, had worked or treated other kiddos, and that's when Dr. Connor Bohr came into the picture, and that was just it. So grateful that we found him because she's now moving around, rolling around. She's so close to crawling. She can pick stuff up. She's eating food. She doesn't have a G-tube anymore. She's not on any medications. So it's all these holistic approaches that have helped her brain kind of start to create these new pathways.
This is an incredibly deep trauma that all of you have gone through. How have you been personally navigating? I mean, you're the mom. I could tell you're tough, and you're going to be tough for your daughter. And thank God she's doing so well. But how are you doing, and what's helping to get you through?
Her, actually. I get my strength from her. It's just, you just go forward. I just chose, I think from the beginning, to not dwell on what happened or, what could have been or what. Let's go. I just knew that she has a bigger plan for her. So I kind of went with that and just found, did what I have to do. And you just kind of go day by day and push through, and yeah, that's it.
And we appreciate you coming in and sharing your story, reaching out to us and to this doctor, Dr. Connor Bohr. We're going to have him on the show since he's just down the street from our studio. I'll just have him walk on down.
Literally. Yeah.
But thank you for educating. Thank you for educating, because as sad as this is to say, it's not going to be the last time that this happens to a family.
And now we want to share a clip with you from our segment Front Doors TV. I interviewed the CEO of Habitat for Humanity, Jason Barlow. They have done some incredible work here in Phoenix that's getting national attention. It has to do with printing the first 3D home. And what they're trying to tackle is the affordable housing crisis. Here's Jason.
We're nothing if we're not about innovation and trying to break this horrible cycle of lack of affordable housing. So when we were approached by some ASU grads, hey, we've got a 3D printer, you interested in trying? I was all in immediately. And it was a long journey. COVID hit. We had delays with the printer, but it's an amazing home. I hope you can see it. And we have a family ready to move in, Marcus and Sean. And I think it's going to be a real game changer potentially for housing and building housing in the United States.
Right now with the housing market, especially here in Arizona, I would imagine the affordable housing crisis is at a very concerning place.
Oh, it is. When I started at Habitat 6 years ago, the average home was $220,000. It's now over 400, and they're predicting 485 by this summer. And that's just an incredible leap in costs. And those costs directly burden the families who we like to serve, which are the lower income families. So the people that have two jobs, they're anybody, your neighbors you run into, but they're having a harder and harder time keeping up with their rents and their mortgages.
And just a huge kudos to what Habitat for Humanity is doing, really filling a void for a lot of families, giving them hope. I will say that, giving them hope, because if you think about it, when somebody doesn't have a job, Americans want to work. People want to work. It makes you feel good. You get that self-confidence, your value, right? So same does for a house. right? And so if you have a
Yes.
family and they're like, gosh, we're never going to be able to afford our own home, and
Yes.
then rental prices are going up, a lot of folks will feel a sense of shame, and it really impacts their mental health. Enter Habitat for Humanity, creating affordable homes for folks so that they do have a roof over their head and so that they're not insecure.
And they have incredible leadership at the Habitat here in Central Arizona because Jason Barlow, he identified that need and he's like, we can solve that problem.
Yeah.
We are going to solve that problem. So we appreciate him sharing that story with us. And now it's time for Mind, Body, Spirit. We want to welcome to the studio Dr. Christopher Keck, who is the president and CEO of Open Hearts Family Wellness. We're going to be talking about trauma-informed care. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, and thanks for having me.
So I interviewed you not long ago, and I was really struck by your story. You've worked in the field of trauma-informed care for some years. You have your own personal story.
I do, and my story is similar to everyone. Adversity hits everybody, unfortunately, nowadays. If not in our own family, it's because the human story around us. So there's 3 layers of story: my story and my family stories. What happened in my family? My parents, despite their best efforts, needed to live their best lives without each other. And so divorce hit, and we, as a kid, I took it on as my own. Like I was responsible. I couldn't put words to that at the time, and nobody told me it was my fault. But I carried that with me, and didn't ask for help. Didn't know I needed help with it until it got to the point where that became like a burden in a backpack that I just couldn't take off. And so it just so happened I kept learning. I went to college for psychology, started learning a little bit more, and my professor, Dr. Donahue, said, if you want to do counseling, then it's good to get counseling. So I sought for it. I found a counselor. Louise was my counselor, and she provided a safe place for me to start thinking about my story, and then the broader context of my family story. And then taking that further, I've gotten to see the human story a little bit larger than just me and my own family.
I want to jump in there because I was telling Brandon a little bit about your backstory after I met you. And Brandon and I always talk about this. Sometimes that one person can totally change the trajectory for you, and this was your person. You were really struggling. I mean, you tell the story well right now and very concise, and you're a doctor and you're smart and you've worked in the field, but this trauma for you was very deep. And you told me when we spoke that she really jumped in there and gave you so much hope.
She did, because I could see in that moment, those moments where I was experiencing the pain and realizing how much shame I was carrying, feeling like I was responsible for something that I wasn't. And with that, she shined light on my story from a different vantage point that helped me see more than the shadows that I thought were surrounding me.
And it's what I've told you before, right? That just a divorce, and I don't mean just a divorce, but a divorce is a traumatic life experience for a child. And this is why it's so important to never compare traumas with anybody else. But we have to understand that when a divorce happens, we have to make sure that the children are being taken care of, because the children, as in your case, will feel like they're the reasons why mom and dad are divorcing, that they will harbor and they will carry that burden of shame and that weight on their shoulders.
Correct, and really the way it's described, what a trauma is, how somebody would see something as traumatic for themselves, is if an event occurs that they do not have the resources to cope with the stress. So for a kid, that's an adult, somebody that's supportive to them, that helps them, that's, as the circle of security describes, bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. They can help them have a safe place and a safe haven to come to when they need help organizing their feelings.
I never heard that, the circle of security. I've never heard that term.
Yeah,
It's a modality. You can find some resources that describe it. It's infant-toddler mental health, but it's applicable to adults too. Once you learn it, you see It's everywhere. It's even in the leadership of an organization, too.
But that trauma has now led you to your life's purpose, right? And so now tell me a little bit about your organization, Open Hearts, and the impact that you guys are trying to have on the community.
When someone needs help, it helps for them because of that broader human story. If they feel like, I know the people that are there. And there's a hope that they will know someone if they look like them. So we have a very diverse group of people working at Open Hearts, and it's in all layers of the organization too. And so with this, one thing that one element of trauma-informed care is cultural humility, and cultural humility starts with knowing our story and our family story, and then how our family fits with everyone else around us. As a white male, I only knew my own experience, but then hearing from Latinos, the Latinx population, hearing from the African American people and things that they have experienced of this culture in the U.S., I didn't experience that myself. If I can expand my understanding through a curiosity, through a humility to understand them and their experience of the same things, then we get to shine that same light and see more things than shadows if we're shining light from multiple angles.
And Dr. Keck, I have a lot of questions that I'd like to ask you. We only have a minute left, and I've done quite a bit of reporting on Open Hearts. One thing I'd like you to point out for our audience is what you guys do is you reach into the communities that are underserved. You deal with a lot of refugees, and that is something truly important within the mental health space, because if someone needs physical care, an emergency room, they will take care of that. But in a lot of these homes, the mental health is suffering, and you guys are really actually going out into the community to make sure people are getting help they need.
That's right. Anybody can walk in through the door and ask us for help. If we can serve them, we will. If we need to send them to somewhere else, we will have some resources to help them. But how we would help them if they were to walk in our doors or give us a call is we'd first want to sit down with them and understand their story. Their individual story, their family story, and from there, figure out a plan that works for them. We seek to bring that safety and trustworthiness so that they know that we're not going to impose something on them, but we're going to find what would be worth their time to help them move forward and cope with, find the resources to deal with the adversity in their lives.
But also understanding things culturally, and especially with the Latino community, is that oftentimes they will not share sadness. They won't share that they're depressed, especially the father within the family system, because culturally they have never been allowed to. They've been trained not to share that stuff.
Well, I have to say very briefly, because one story that sat with me that actually I was told when I was on your campus was about a family who came from Mexico, and the little boy was really suffering. No one could figure out what was happening. Your folks did not give up on this family. It really makes me want to cry. The little boy, it ended up being uncovered. He was being sexually molested by the uncle. Yeah. And because your folks stayed with them, I think you saved that kid's life. I really do.
If there is harm happening and it is unnoticed, then it's difficult for a kid to. It's chronic stress. It's chronic trauma that happens again and again, and neuroplasticity says that they learn to develop. This expectation of life is always this way. Yeah. And so being able to intervene and help someone develop hope that maybe I can learn something new, maybe I can set down this backpack of overburdened experiences to get some help, even just to look at the backpack and take a couple of things out at a time. There's no magic formula for immediate relief from the adversities of life. But if we develop habits to respond to the events of our life, then we can pursue mental strength, mental health for ourselves.
And you know what you said was so crucial there with this little boy, giving him an opportunity to be able to share that experience so he does not carry that weight, because neuroplasticity plays a huge role in child molestation and the formation of the brain. And I know that because I was a a survivor of child molestation as well, between the ages of 7 to 10, and the impact that that had on me. And if it is not addressed, okay, if it is not addressed, the path will likely look like mine. You'll get into heavy substance use disorder issue as a way to cope because you're constantly in fight or flight.
Right.
Dr. Keck, thank you so much for being here and sharing your personal story and for all of the great work you're doing over at Open Hearts. We really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me as well.
Thank you.
Great.
And now we want to close on our sunshine story. And Dr. Keck, you can stay here on set with us and watch this story because this is so beautiful. So this is out of Turkey, and this teacher told each student that he had a box in the front of the classroom, and he said, go up and look in the box because I listed out my favorite students. And then each student would go up one by one.
To see if their picture was at the bottom of the box.
To see if they were listed or their picture,
favorite?
am I the favorite? And what this teacher had done is put a mirror. So each student leaned down and saw their own face.
Yeah.
It is just so beautiful to think about that.
And just the anxiety, though, like if you're a student in that classroom and your teacher's like, all right, go to the top of the box here, go look down, I have my favorite student at the bottom there. You know, kids are excited, but they're also anxious, right? They want to be the one that's picked, but they're also a little scared. Well, wait a second, what if he didn't choose me? And then they get up there and they have that realization moment. And you're seeing here in the video that the kids are smiling.
Yes.
That they actually feel like they all feel loved, they all feel part of.
They all feel special.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing what that teacher did. Yeah.
Don't you see? He's shaking his head. Thank you all so much for being with us for Good Morning Sunshine. We certainly appreciate all of you.
And we hope you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll notice that there's a little bell notification sign. Click on that. Every time we upload a new episode, you will be alerted so you can watch it and be ahead of behavioral health news.
And we'll put the email on the screen. If you have a story idea for us or a guest that you want to submit, go ahead and get in touch with us. We do read all of our emails and all of our socials. So we love hearing from all of you. For now, I'm Carey Pena alongside Brandon Lee. Take good care, everyone.